So this session, we want to talk a bit about how do you optimize your cost with AWS, right? So giving everyone the flexibility in your organization to start any kind of new instance. Some of them might be really powerful. It's very, really good, but at the same time, when you look at it from a CFO or financial perspective, that kind of leverage, giving it to the developers or some of the people might not be the right thing you want to do, right? So here we are going to talk about in this session primarily how do you look at cost, how do we at AWS look from cost optimization, what are the different techniques you can use to make sure you're not running over with your cost, and also a few techniques that I will talk about. Again, this is a 40-minute session, so we will not get pretty deep into any of these, but let me, like you have my email address there, my Amazon email address. Let me or Ron know if you guys need a deep dive into any of these cost optimization sessions. We would be more than happy to do that for you. So, talking about uh, talking about the cost optimizations, the first thing that comes to mind the first thing that comes to mind is what when you look at cost optimization, you want to look at things that the cloud provides you, right? The things like scaling up, scaling down based on the usage, right? So you do not want to take those capabilities out because of cost optimization. So the reason we want to talk about it here is there are certain cloud capabilities we want to give a, give the applications or the teams that capabilities. At the same time, we also want to make sure if we are giving those capabilities, they are being used in the right perspective. Let me give you a good example. I recently ran into at a customer. So I had a customer who was running a Linux application, and they were having a T2 extra large appliance. So T2 extra large is one of our big appliances, which had about 32 GB of RAM, and which had about, I believe, 160 GB of hard drive, right, SSD hard drive. So when we really dive deep and looked into the application, it really didn't need that, right? So the earlier speaker talked a bit about right sizing of your application. So we will dive a bit deeper into that. So that is what we mean by cost optimization. At the same time, we also want to do most of these savings or most of these alerting systems about cost optimization more real time, right? So traditionally what happens is you have a lot of usage, you get a report at the end of the month or even at the end of the day, and then you react to whatever report you got on, right? So let's say you had a end of the day report which said, okay, you were supposed to spend $100 on this application, but yesterday for whatever reason you spent $500. So that you already spent the $500 yesterday, which we want to cut down, right? So that is why we heavily emphasize on real-time reporting, and that pretty much plays very well into all of the services you have been seeing since this morning. So few things that the way we look at AWS is we want to see what is happening. Then we want to run some built-in controls on on how to react to certain of these, and also you want to plan on how are you going to use Azure AWS, right? We do understand that when you first step into AWS or when you have this first application that is running in AWS, which you are not really sure of how to do, we understand that you cannot do any commitments, but we also want you to think about what your commitment would look like and do some planning. And finally, we want you to save based on all the above things that we talked about here, right? So we will just dive a bit deep. So when I mean see, what we mean is we want to organize and report based on all of the usage that you have been doing. So there is a very detailed billing dashboard that you can look at when you could go look at AWS billing dashboard. So we will talk about something called tagging that is very important. So for every resource that you launch in AWS, it could be all the way from a Lambda, which runs for very few milliseconds, to EC2 instances, which run 24 by 7. you always can have tags and you can have reports generated out of those tags. One of the best use cases most of my customers do with the tags is they have something called cost allocation, right? So basically they have some kind of cost center that they use in some fashion or the other in a tag, and then they actually build the teams whichever has the resource up and running. That way the teams actually know how much they are spending, and you can do a lot of that. And there are a lot of built-in controls within AWS. You have a lot of alerts that you can generate. Let's say you have budget, you can create budgets. Let's say you have a budget where you say, this month I'm only going to spend 50K on AWS. Then you can have alerts where as you are getting closer to the budget, let's say 70%, 80%, 90%, you can get alerts, which might be different types of notifications through email, SMS, and lot more, right? That way, you are not caught by surprise, but halfway through the month, if you are hitting 50%, that is fine. But if you're hitting 70% halfway through, you want to look at it and either revise your budget or say that how do you cut down your spend, right? And also improve your planning. This is where we want to look at because we will talk about it later on, where if you know you're going to commit or you're always going to use certain EC2 instances or certain resources for the next few months or next few years, you can actually commit saying that I need this type of instance for the next year. Then you get a good discount, right? And finally, again, take control of optimizing your cost. You want to make sure you're using the right appliance for the right purpose, because we have 175 plus services today. You can do the same thing in multiple ways in AWS, right? So we want to make sure you understand what is the optimal way for you to do this, right? So the earlier speaker talked about a really good comparison where you had two EC2 instances versus running it in a Lambda. In that case, Lambda was very easy for you to decide, but you have to do that work to figure out what is my optimal way of achieving that. So most of our reports or not most, all of them are pretty real-time, near real-time reports. So you have very sub-millisecond latency before the report and the event being occurring. And you can organize the reports, as I said, based on cost allocation tags or AWS cost categories, right? So AWS has itself a lot of cost categories. So based on the time, I will try to go and show you, if you guys can, to the dashboard to show you how some cost allocation looks like. So you can even drill down to the level of which service was being charged, right? So you can go down into what we call cost explorer, and then you can kind of explore your entire billing, right? You can look at how much am I being charged, which day am I being charged, what is the service that is being charged, and then you can generate a lot of multiple reports, right? So you don't have to generate the report multiple times. You can just generate a report, save it, so that whenever you open the report again, you get the same layout, right? And as I said, tax is a very, very important, especially from a financial perspective, for you to charge back to people who are using these resources. So I strongly recommend you to have a what we call a tagging strategy. So every resource that come into AWS should have a tagging strategy. And then you can enforce rules like, if these 5 tags are not present, like what is the account, what is a team, what is a cost center, stuff like that. If these 3 tags are not present, I'm not going to allow the resource to be launched. You can enforce rules such a way that way every resource that is being launched has some kind of tagging in there. And then finally, we have also the AWS cost and usage report. That again is a very important thing, because we also want to give you recommendations on how your usage is. We want to look at that usage. And as I said, you have some savings that we can give you based on commitments. So we also want to look at your usage and recommend you certain things, saying that if we see that there is an RDS instance, for example, which is continuously being used, we want to tell you that maybe if you can convert that into a commitment, we can save you X percentage of our dollars there. So for the billing, built-in for the built-in billing ones. So if you if you know about AWS organizations, it is kind of, if you have multiple accounts within AWS in your organizations, using AWS organizations, you can structure everything into one big account. So AWS organizations plays very well with the billing system. So you can make AWS organizations, which is your master account, to have all your billing and all of that, and then you can have this aggregated billing, and also you can have complete cost transparency, right? So the good thing with aggregated billing, one thing is, let's say you have two accounts, each one of them using uh, half a day worth of EC2 instance, right? When you come up at the aggregated level, we can actually apply discounts at the aggregated level because your billing is done at the aggregated level. We can apply special discounts at the aggregated level based on the usage, irrespective of how your accounts are being used, right? So that is something that is very interesting, because when you look at an individual account, you might not really see that saving potential. But when you look at it an organization account, you might see, say, like committing X amount of compute might save you few dollars, right? Again, there are also recommendations that we provide in most of these scenarios. And also you can, IAM is again a very strong thing. Security is a very huge thing for us. So we will talk about a service called Trusted Advisor, but we also, security is extremely important for us. And again, you can control who has access to these billing accounts, who has access to view the billing reports, because you might do not want everyone in your organization to have access to all the billing information that is going on AWS. So you can pretty much control who has access to what in there. So as I said, improved planning. You want to definitely create budgets. You can put thresholds. You can create the notifications, and then also you can react to those notifications. And also you can. We strongly recommend you to define KPIs based on your monthly usage, like how many hours or how much is do you think this project or this team should be spending, right? So again, it goes back to my tagging strategy. If you know your developer team on project ABC should be spending $10,000 this month on AWS, they can create a budget within their account so that as they are approaching it, the team is aware of it, right? So you can create all of these based on tags and all of those. Uh, uh, all of those. So again, as I said, tagging is extremely important for your entire strategy of your financial planning in AWS. So again, optimize and save. So I always make what we call cloud center of excellence teams within the organization. So this is a team which normally meets every month on or every quarterly basis to see how can we optimize our existing AWS environment, right? So in this case, for looking financially, or how can we optimize, or are my instances right sized? So there are a lot of metrics you can get from CloudWatch and all of the other supporting AWS services. Like if you have a EC2 instance which has CPU utilization of 5 or 6%, maybe that is not the right size, right? So you want to drill down into your billing. The center of excellence teams normally drill down into this billing and say, is this the right thing that I have? And once you're done with that, then you want to make sure you're purchasing you're doing any commitments for any of your compute or storage even, and using all of that as well. And finally, you can actually have automated scripts as well, where you can kind of do that. And AWS has a couple of services which we will talk about, which is called Trusted Advisor. So Trusted Advisor is a free service within AWS. And we have something called well architected framework, and it has 5 pillars. One of the pillar is cost savings, right? So when you open Trusted Advisor and look at the cost savings, you will automatically see things like, hey, these ports are so we feel that you are not using XYZ instance for the last 2 weeks, things like that, right? So the trusted advisor will give you those kind of reports. So that actually will give you a really good insight into two things. One is it will tell you all of the inactive stuff that is going on in your account. So it will tell you RDS instances which are never connected in the last 2 weeks by any instance. It will tell you EC2 instances which have extremely low CPU utilization. It will also talk about snapshots that you take as you run your entire infrastructure. It will talk about, hey, these snapshots have been more than 2 years. Maybe you have to delete them. So it will give you all those nice recommendations, and it is really powerful. And it will also give you a dollar number that it thinks if you implement all of those changes that it is suggesting how much you will save. And normally it is pretty significant. And also you have other things like AWS Compute Optimizer, which again, it's another service where you can save 25% of the cost. So I just wanted to touch a bit on Trusted Advisor a bit deep. So these are the things that it will talk to you about. Things, as I said, if you have any ideal load balancers, it will tell you, hey, I feel that you have ideal load balancer. It will talk about any elastic IP addresses that are not associated, any RDS ideal instances, and any EC2 instance lease expirations. So things like that, right? If you really think about it, you really don't have to do anything new, but all you have to do is go and open your Trusted Advisor report and kind of see through just from a cost optimization perspective. These are the things that it can tell you. As I said, Trusted Advisor also gives you recommendations about other things. So things like, I think Steve talked about it earlier, was from a security standpoint, where if you have any ports that are open to the public, right? Pallavi talked about how you can block them. But if there are anything that are open to the public, a Trusted Advisor will report them in that one single snapshot. And then either you can take action or you can ignore those. So again, a very powerful tool for your cost optimization strategy. So a few other things that I want to talk about, while especially when you're doing the right sizing. Few things you want to think about are what we call reserved instances. So this is where I'm talking where we talked about committed and steady state usage. So let's say you are fine with your application, you came to a steady state of the application, and now you know that I need this application for the next year, or I need this application for the next 3 years. Based on your commitment, you get a discount. So you can go ahead and purchase reserved instances. And there are few good things with the reserved instances. You get about anywhere between 50 to 70% discount. Again, how is that variant is dependent on how much you put up upfront. So if you have a complete upfront, you're paying everything upfront, you get a larger discount versus paying nothing upfront, right? So you have multiple options that you can select from in reserved instances, but you are committing for the use of that instance type for the next year or 3 years, right? And the only caveat I see with reserved instances, again, which savings plan has covered for us, is that with reserved instances, you can change the instance types, but there is only very slight leverage for you to do that. Within the instance family, you can do slight modifications, but you cannot go over your instance family. And that we had reserved instances for a while, but savings plan was introduced, I think, in October or November of last year, which basically we wanted to take a step ahead of your reserved instances and help you save the money. So with savings plan, it is your next level of reserved instances. You can flexibly move across any of your compute, right? And you normally get same discounts as your EC2 RIs, but with more flexibility, right? So right now, if you ask me what is my best choice, I would say strongly go for your savings plan, because you are not committing to any instance sizes, but you're getting the same discount, right? So try to use savings plan as much as you can. And also the savings plan is more on the compute type of stuff, right? So if you are using Lambda as part of your compute, savings plan will include even the Lambda as well. So you can even save your usage out of Lambda using savings plan, which again is extremely important. and it is very flexible. As I said, you can use it on EC2, you can use it on containers, you can use it on Lambda as well. I'm not sure if Lambda savings plan is yet GA, but it is definitely in preview. And finally, one of the biggest things, if you ask me, I want you to take away from this session on how to save is EC2 spot instances. EC2 spot instances is where you can actually save up to 90 to 95%. There is a instance type where I saw 92%. That was the highest I saw. 92% of your EC2 cost, right? So the only challenge with your spot instance is, let me go take a step back and tell you how we provide spot instances. So let's say we have this huge data centers across different regions. We have this unused compute power, which we want to give it to you because no one is using it. So that is the compute that is available for spot. So you can come in and you can make an API call, say, hey, EC2 spot instance, I want this type of EC2 spot instance. You get it, you start running your application. We give you what we call a 2-minute warning. So when we can take the instance back anytime we want with an EC2 spot instance by giving you a 2-minute warning. So this is amazingly useful, especially for scenarios where you have microservice architectures, where you have these individual microservices which can go down and again come back up, right? But if you see the benefit of it, it is like you can get about 90% cost savings using EC2 spot instances. Again, extremely powerful scenarios. The only caveat is your application should be able to stop and start, or for whatever reason, if suddenly the application is halted, it should be able to pick up where it left off. As long as your application can handle that, EC2 spot is an extremely useful scenario. I strongly suggest everyone look at using EC2 spot in some kind of fashion in their applications. So this is a typical normal use case that you would see when you go to any application or any customer, like many of you guys, is where you might have your compute divided, right? So it could be scenarios like I need to have my core component of my application always running. So that is where we would bring RIs or savings plan. And then you would have some kind of compute which might need to run whenever you need it, but it cannot stop while it is running for whatever reason. So that is where you go into on demand. That is what is the actual marketplace price for those instances which is published on AWS. And then you might have things like, okay, now I want to run analytics, or now I want to run some kind of log processing on these applications. But I don't really need it to run right now. But if it is also shut down, that is fine. I can bring it back up and reprocess it. Scenarios like that, Spot again is an extremely powerful example there. So you can use Spot for those instances. So if you really think about it, the same compute world has been divided into 3 different chunks, like reserved instances, on demand, and Spot. So this is the kind of things that I want you guys to think about whenever you're looking at cost optimizing. This is what we call cost optimizing, is trying to fit into the right instances. So now you're getting your savings both in your RIs, reserved instances, and savings plan for your core component. So you will get about 40 to 45% of savings there. Your on demand, you would not get any specific savings because it is on demand. There is no special discounts. But on your Spot, again, you're getting about 90% of savings. So when you look at the overall picture, you have saved considerable amount of bulk savings there. So again, Spot instance is extremely popular within the AWS landscape. So a lot of companies use Spot instances. Again, you can see Lyft says about 74% of their 75% per month on their CI/CD pipelines are being saved. So as you can see, there are Salesforce users saves about 40% using reserved instances. Then Standard Chartered again has cost reduced by 60% for Spot instances. With Spot, the only big thing I want you to think about is if it stops at any given point, can I reprocess it? As long as you can do that, it is amazing. So think about more like tying up Spot to S3. So as you calculate some, or as your application does something, save the files in S3 so that for whatever reason, if it goes down, your Nest application can come up and take the data back from S3, things like that. I have seen those kinds of implementations pretty frequently. Again, a lot of customers using Spot and RIs pretty heavily across the board. So a couple of other things other than the EC2 instances that I wanted to talk about are the storage and database provisioning. So for the storage, DynamoDB, RDS, all of those, we have what we call the self-provisioning on-demand capacity or self-provisioning kind of stuff. So you do not tell us how many read capacity units you need or write capacity units you need. We automatically determine based on the usage. That way you're not being charged. You're not being charged for every request that comes through, right? So we kind of use machine learning behind the scenes and basically use that for us to help you guys with that. And then with storage, S3 intelligent tiering is a very powerful thing. So S3 again, not diving deep, S3 is our storage tier. It has multiple layers, and S3 itself, S3 frequently accessed is S3. So whenever you put a file into S3, it is frequently accessed S3. You get charged per gigabyte, but as you do, there is the last layer we have is called Glacier, where the charge to store a gigabyte is, I think it is extremely low. It is 0.000. After 3 zeros, it is 23. So it's extremely low. So for a terabyte, you would be paying about 23 cents a month or something. The only thing with Glacier is as you retrieve the data, you pay data retrieval fee. And between my S3 and Glacier, there are 5 different layers, right? So S3 infrequent accessed, Glacier, and so we have 5 different layers between my standard S3 and Glacier. And S3 intelligent tiering, what it does is it kind of sees how usage pattern is. So if it's, let's say you have certain types of files, you are not frequently accessing them, then it moves from S3 to S3 infrequent access. And then it tries to identify what is the pattern. Let's say you have these files coming from your source systems every day. You land them in S3, you process them using your batch, and then S3 intelligent tiering automatically moves that into S3 infrequent access for 30 days. Maybe after 90 days, it moves it into Glacier. And there is also S3 Deep Glacier as well, in case you want to store data for long term. So you have S3 intelligent tiering, and it automatically takes care of all of those moves for you. And the other thing with EC2, again, you can have auto scaling policies. Basically, you can have either dynamic auto scaling. Basically, it predicts certain traffic patterns. Based on that, you can warm up and warm, so that when the sudden traffic spike happens, you know at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're going to release a promotion, and you're going to expect your network, your website to be hit extremely heavily. You can do auto scaling policies to make sure that you're warmed up by then. And also you can do things like based on CPU utilization, you can scale up and scale down. And also you have AWS Instance Scheduler. So if you want to use your applications only between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. scenarios like that, we do run into those scenarios, and then you can have something called AWS Instance Scheduler, which can help you identify any of those and also give you recommendations on that. So again, going back to that optimize and save, simple scenarios that we want to talk about is AWS Compute Optimizer. It will help you balance between cost and performance. Again, there are different instance types we have in EC2. So each one has their own specific need that you can use. So as long as your instance types are within certain allowable certain instances, like the M for memory, C compute and stuff like that, then your compute optimizer can help you give some recommendations based on your historical usage on what it thinks you should be doing there. Then coming to the instance discovery. So instance discovery again is a very useful thing, is where you can specify the requirements and then compare. You can say that I need 16 GB of RAM and I need 160 GB of hard drive or something like that, right? So you can specify your technical requirements, and then you get a comparison on what are the different types of AWS instances that we support, matches that, and then which one to use and stuff like that. Cost Explorer and resource recommendations, again, you can use that very specifically for the right sizing of your application, because I think that is extremely important. And finally, Trusted Advisor, as I said, is a real-time guidance with our well-architected framework. So if you guys have not looked at the well-architected framework, we have an entire PDF on how we at AWS look at well-architected framework, but it is more generic. So irrespective of whether you're on premises, whether you're in cloud, whether you're with someone else, I strongly recommend you to go and look at that well-architected framework best practices. It gives you a totally different perspective on it. Finally, before concluding, couple of other, again, customer feedback. We are customer-driven company at AWS, continuously taking feedback from people like you, the customers who use AWS, and we are improving our services. So we rely heavily on our customer feedback again. The Tiger Spike, again, talking about how they were able to use AWS cost optimizations to make sure they do not get those unanticipated bills at the end of the month, right? So we have a lot of those customer, again, a new bank talking about how they use Compute Optimizer to make sure that they had the right instances and all of those nice things. And again, Fred Hutch talking about EC2 Spot instances and how they made sure they had the right amount, like they wanted a lot of compute, but at the right cost. So that is very, like, as you can see there, the Spot is again extremely powerful for a lot of research, because you can always restart, but you're getting a 90% savings right there. So again, before I conclude, a few links that you guys can use to go on to your next cost optimization stuff, right? Again, I'll send out this deck to Ron and he will eventually distribute it to all of you. So we have a lot of links out there on AWS, multiple ways you guys can save some of these. So the 10 best things that you can do to reduce your bill, the 6 different ways startups can look at it, a lot of cost optimization workshops that we do. So please let us know again if you need anything from a cost perspective, if you think you're overspending on AWS, or if you for whatever reason think AWS is charging you more, please let us know. We will be more than happy to come over, help you with your specific application or specific account on what are the best ways we can help you to reduce the bill following AWS best practices. Finally, thank you all. I know I'm close to time here. Thank you all for taking time to attend this session. Again, cost optimization is a very big thing. Try to squeeze a lot of things into this 40-minute presentation. So if you have any questions, please let us know. If not, I think it's back to you, Ron.
Excellent. Let me first thank Mahesh for giving a great concluding talk. I'm just going to send out a poll and try and get feedback. Remember how many organizations save so much money with AWS. I always like to talk about serverless from the standpoint of AWS now makes its own proprietary chips. They can build and buy servers incredibly cheaply, much less costly than even the largest organizations can buy independently. And so that is one of the key drivers why some of the organizations are looking to AWS for greater cost savings. And then you can deploy those financial resources into other areas that are more strategic to the company.